right? To be a better meditator, or to be a certified medit- meditation teacher. And it's crazy, because one of the best segments I just went through this morning. Do you know you can have too much meditation? Do you know you can be too mindful? Which I know kind of I shouldn't say blows my mind. That might trigger somebody. But it's true. It's true. You can have too much mindfulness, which is why, you see a meditator do something. I like to do just the opposite. You see the meditators like sitting on a couch or not a couch. Well, those little cushions sitting on it. I like to walk. I like to, Thich Nhat Hanh used to walk a lot. I like to keep my eyes open when I meditate. But it's sort of funny that, can you meditate too much? I mean, that was almost like a news flash to me. Like, yes, you can meditate too much. Well, fortunately, I only do it about 10 minutes a day. Actually, probably more. Uh, Actually, when you think about it, I'm meditating even now. Anyway, we close the show with a little meditation, a little loving kindness meditation each show. Welcome to this one. This is episode 438, Emil Amok's Takeout. I'm the aforementioned Emil Amok, Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is it's not really an experiment in talk radio. Talk radio used to be a thing. People used to go on the radio and they would talk about the news, and then people would call up and say, they'd say whatever they want, right? I mean, and some people would say the criticism of talk radio was, this is great. We have people who have no business having an opinion talking to powerless people who have no business having an opinion, and that is called AM radio. Well, then it was Rush Limbaugh who took it to new heights, and mostly conservative heights. The liberals, I don't know, the liberals went off and they read quarterly journals like Foreign Affairs, or they had Foreign Affairs, or they read the Atlantic or Harper's or something like that, or they went to alt weeklies that are now defunct. I mean, the whole media landscape has changed, and now we have this thing called the internet, and we have a new kind of talk radio, which is, you have me, experienced journalist, award-winning journalist, talk show host, talking about the news, talking about issues. It's, dealing from verified, reported facts, stories. So it's reported opinion. It's not just me talking out of my extremities. It's a kind of news talk that's more democratic because I don't have sponsors. You can always Venmo me though. But we're not beholden to sponsors. We're not beholden to we don't have to have a big audience. We can have smaller the better in some ways. Because, this is the inverse of having a large audience, right? My large audience theory. The bigger the audience, the less you can say. The smaller the audience, the more you can say. The more commercial you are, the less you can say. The less commercial, the more you can say. Did I say that? The more commercial you are, the less you can say. Really, honestly. Because you're worried about, I'm going to offend somebody. The smaller your audience, you can say anything. And then even the big guys would say, you can't bother with him. He's just some kind of gadfly. He doesn't know anything. No, but I'm dealing from reported facts. So I'm doing reported opinion because it's based on something. And we're doing it here. We're doing it here on this forum, on the internet. Now, because I guess it says something. I'm an old guy because I like to go on Facebook. I like Facebook because everyone's on Facebook. I don't do TikTok yet, although believe me, I'm plotting. Because, to show off a couple of moves, you got to show off TikTok for moves. Facebook for, I don't know, Facebook, just everyone's on, right? And Twitter. Now, I used to be on Twitter early on. I still am. This show is on at Emil Amok on Twitter, but Twitter is, come on, let's face it. Twitter is, it's going down fast. I mean, it's not even Instagram. And I told you why I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram. I am Emil Amok 1 on Instagram, but I was talked out of it early on, and then everyone rushed it. Now there's 2 billion people, 2 billion people on Instagram. Anyway, I have a minor presence there, and then of course my pathetic YouTube channel at Emil Amok 1 on YouTube. Check that out. We're live. You can catch past, and then also amok.com. That's what we do here, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific. We just talk about the news from a perspective. I say AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander, the AAXs, Asian American, fill in your ethnicity, but really, you don't have to be Asian. You could be ALLs, all's the rest of you. Because I write for Black publications or community publications in the Black community, primarily the Black community, and Asian community. I write for online publications like the Inquirer.net and also ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. So you can read my column there. aldef.org/blog. Anyway, so we come together, we talk about the big stories of the day, and the big story, I guess right now, the biggest AAPI story is Mauna Loa, and we'll get to that. I mean, it's still erupting, and it's going at 1 miles per hour, closer and closer to civilization. Actually, it's close to the main highway. The governor, David Ige, was on CNN. Now, it's rare when you get the governor of Hawaii on CNN. So I'll play a little thing from him today. And then yesterday, let me just tease all the rest of the stuff we're talking about. Talk about Hakeem Jeffries. Do you know who Hakeem Jeffries is? He's the new minority leader taking over for Nancy Pelosi, who will step down as speaker. And I hope they give a send-off to Pelosi before, well, they will, before January. They have to. Nancy Pelosi, I think, deserves maybe is it a title? She is maybe the best speaker ever. Is that possible? Maybe of recent memory. I mean, I don't want to make too much of Nancy Pelosi, but she's been there more than 20 years. She's won and lost and won and lost. She's managed to retain that seat, and this time she said, "Let a new generation come in," which I think is really the appropriate thing. She was getting some pushback the last Congress when she was the majority and became the House Speaker. And I just think Hakeem Jeffries is the right choice. He was being groomed. We'll talk about Hakeem Jeffries in a second. So lots of stuff happening today, and especially the story. I mean, usually we come on at 2 p.m. Pacific live to talk about the news that has happened so far in the day, and then sometimes by the time we get off by 3 p.m. Pacific, something breaks. And today yesterday the breaking news was the Oathkeepers verdict, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. They found Stuart Rhodes and his crew guilty of seditious conspiracy This is a significant thing. And it is, in fact, a message to anyone out there who is part of some kind of paramilitary operation, or was a coat hanger or coattail hanger on January 6th. This is a message that all that was a criminal act, and that you were part of something that, if it hasn't dawned on you now, that you were an enemy of democracy. If you were part of that January 6th gathering, the insurrectionists, where people were killed, where buildings were damaged, where people were threatened, and the trial of the Oathkeepers, I think, I think drives that home to people, that wasn't just, these weren't tourists out to cheer on President Trump. These were people actually trying to obstruct justice, trying to obstruct the act of democracy, and trying to stop the certification of the vote. And I heard something that was something that I had not heard of or heard directly. It was a conversation of Stuart Rhodes about what they were going to do. And you hear that, and you know this is damning evidence. You hear Stuart Rhodes talking about gathering up his group of militants, waiting for their word to come in. And he had people there. He was outside the Capitol directing it. But here is him talking. And when you hear the conversation, it's like, it is something. Here's Stuart Rhodes. He's talking about helping Trump.
Let Antifa go. If they go kinetic on us, then we'll go kinetic back on them. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for that. But the fight starts there, okay? Now give President Trump what he needs, frankly. If things go kinetic, good. If they blow bombs up and shoot us, great. Because that brings the president his reason and rationale.
See, he's just saying, look, if it goes kinetic, great. And if they, he was willing to sacrifice himself for that. I mean, if you're a member of the jury and you hear something like that, you got to say, are these people all right? And they're plotting the downfall of democracy.
We'll go kinetic back on them. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for that.
He's willing to sacrifice himself. He says,
now give President Trump what he needs, frankly. If things go kinetic, good. If they blow bombs up and shoot us, great. Because that brings the president his reason and rationale for dropping the insurrection.
So the idea was they wanted to give Donald Trump the reason, right? The reason to go in and call for martial law, to invoke the Insurrection Act. And you hear a conversation like that, you cannot say that, oh, Stuart Rhodes, the Oathkeepers, they were innocents, that this was some kind of spontaneous act. It was not. And I heard that in some of the reports today, and I thought to myself, wow, if anyone has any doubts that these people were trying to do and were planning on doing some real serious damage to not just the Capitol, but to our democracy, just got to listen to that. And of course, we have, you have the video, And you have Garland today coming out and talking about what the Department of Justice did, essentially taking a victory lap for what happened. Here's Attorney General Merrick Garland. And this is something that I think everyone needs to hear about, because this is the pro-democracy movement in America. If you want to preserve democracy, you have to see how real the threats are. The threats are real. And it's from these groups like the Oathkeepers and the Promise Keepers. Their trial's coming up on Monday, by the way. So it's the Department of Justice is doing its job, and Garland was out there today saying we want all the transcripts from everything, from the January 6th testimony. So just because the January 6th committee's job may be done with this Congress, as they go into the next Congress, the Department of Justice is going to be working on that, and it's not over. But this was the first verdict to come in, the first guilty verdicts. And here's Attorney General Garland.
When I began my tenure as Attorney General, I laid out three co-equal core priorities for the Department of Justice: to uphold the rule of law, to keep our country safe, and to protect civil rights. Our work yesterday marked significant successes on each of these fronts. Early yesterday evening, a jury in the District of Columbia found 5 defendants associated with the Oathkeepers guilty of serious crimes related to the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol. 2 defendants were convicted of seditious conspiracy against the United States for conspiring to oppose by force the peaceful transfer of presidential power. Those 2 defendants and the 3 other defendants were also convicted of obstructing the certification of the Electoral College vote. And various defendants were also convicted of different additional felony counts, ranging from conspiring to prevent members of Congress from discharging their duties, to interfering with law enforcement officers attempting to guard the Capitol during the attack, to tampering with relevant evidence after the fact. These convictions were the result of tireless work by Justice Department agents, attorneys, analysts, and support staff, beginning in January 2021 with a methodical collection of evidence and continuing through the presentation of that evidence during the 7-week trial that began in October of 2022.
So that's Merrick Garland thanking his crew for doing their job, right? And rightfully so. They should be thanked, because they work. Whenever you hear bureaucrats use the term they work tirelessly, that has become almost a cliche, to be tireless. But it's true. And it's more thankless than tireless, because these are tough jobs, and they did it. Here's Garland.
During the trial, the government's evidence showed that almost immediately following the November 2020 election, defendant Stewart Rhodes, the founder and leader of the Oathkeepers, began planning to oppose by force the peaceful transfer of power. With Rhodes, defendants Kelly Meggs, Kenneth Harrelson, Jessica Watkins, and Thomas Caldwell communicated and planned to travel to Washington on or around January 6, 2021.
And those are the key names, right? Stewart Rhodes, founder of Oathkeepers, Kelly Meggs, Kenneth Harrelson, Jessica Watkins, Thomas Caldwell. The jury found against them yesterday, and rightfully so.
On January 6, as the government's evidence showed, defendants Meggs, Harrelson, and Watkins forcefully breached the U.S. Capitol wearing paramilitary gear, while defendants Rhodes and Caldwell remained outside on the Capitol ground, coordinating activities. Last evening, a jury of the defendants' peers found each of them guilty of serious felony offenses. As the verdict of this case makes clear, the department will work tirelessly to hold accountable those responsible for crimes related to the attack on our democracy on January 6, 2021.
And that's the important thing, right? This is the pro democracy movement in America. You got to have a Justice Department who will go out and make sure that when these breaches occur, that people will be held accountable for their actions. So that was a good thing. A good thing yesterday. The verdicts. We have Merrick Garland out there taking his victory lap. But he also wanted to, and this is important for all people of color to know, that the Department of Justice is looking out for you when it comes to environmental justice.
Yesterday, the department also secured a significant achievement for environmental justice in Jackson, Mississippi. In August of this year, a water system failure caused many Jackson residents to lose access to running water for over a week. This resulted in local, state, and federal emergency declarations and the deployment of emergency responders and drinking water infrastructure experts to Jackson. And as the residents of Jackson know all too well, the August failure occurred after years of problems with the water system. Attorneys and staff from our Environment and Natural Resources Division's Environmental Enforcement Section, from the newly formed Office of Environmental Justice, and from the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Mississippi, quickly went to work with our partners at EPA to address the water crisis facing 160,000 residents of Jackson and Hinds County. Yesterday, on behalf of the EPA, the department filed a federal complaint against the city, alleging that it has failed to provide drinking water that is reliably compliant with the Safe Drinking Water Act. At the same time, we filed a proposed interim order signed and agreed to by the City of Jackson, the Mississippi State Department of Health, and the EPA. The proposed order is designed to stabilize the city's public drinking water system while the United States, the city, and the State Department of Health attempt to negotiate a judicially enforceable consent decree to achieve the long-term sustainability of the water system.
See, you got to wonder, why is this even necessary? It's necessary because people of color have been neglected. They don't get the services. They don't get what's needed to even comply with these federal laws. And when that happens, it takes the action of the Justice Department to come in and swing their elbows and get things done. So there's this dual approach. They're going to file a suit. They're going to negotiate with the city. But this is important because who's watching out for us, right? I mean, if you want to know about enemies of democracy, enemies of equal protection, you might have to look at corporations. You might have to look at big moneyed sort of, entities. Or why do they neglect the poor? Why do they neglect people of color? Why does this kind of injustice, how is it allowed to occur? Or to be, how can you possibly justify it? Here's more from Garland.
Although environmental justice can happen anywhere, injustice can happen anywhere. Communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income communities often bear the brunt of these harms. As we work to fulfill our responsibility to keep the American people safe, to protect civil rights, we will continue to prioritize cases like this one that will have the greatest impact on communities most burdened by environmental harm.
I mean, sometimes you just need those kind of assurances, right? And I'm talking about communities like ones that I live nearby. I'm talking about Stockton, California, having to deal with the pollution from a port from a highway system that has, left air unmitigated for decades. And now they're trying to deal with, mitigate some of those problems. Planting trees, a simple mitigation technique. But how does it happen that communities are ignored? Unless people come in and they have the weight of the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice comes in and says, why didn't you guys have clean air? Why didn't you guys have clean water? Let's fix this imbalance. And sometimes you need government coming in, stepping forward to take action. So Merrick Garland, Attorney General, protecting democracy, protecting civil rights, holding people accountable. In the case of the Oathkeepers trial, if you're going to get in the way of our democracy by preventing certification of valid, fair, free elections, you will pay the price. You will be held accountable. That's the pro-democracy movement that we need to be a part of. Holding people who will denigrate our democracy, holding them to account. And then upholding the civil rights of people of color, of poor people in communities where they bear the brunt of environmental misjudgments, miscalculations. Or maybe it wasn't a miscalculation. They were always going to bear the brunt because communities, corporations in that area didn't care about them. They figured, oh, these people, the poor, they'll never complain. They can bear the brunt of our environmental excesses. So thank goodness for Merrick Garland stepping in, and he deserved the victory lap because, the Oath Keepers, that was a big story yesterday as I got off as I stopped the broadcast or our show. But it was great. I mean, I guess people covered it through the night. I saw some coverage, but this morning I barely saw any coverage. I barely saw any coverage on the mainstream networks. I mean, it was an aside, but it was, I was watching the Today Show. I don't know, when I was watching, this is the thing about when you watch broadcast, you catch what they are covering. And if they're not covering the most important thing, then what are they covering? Well, I didn't see anything on the Oath Keepers, but I did see a nice report on Haley Bieber. I didn't know who Haley Bieber was. So thank you. Thank you, NBC News. I didn't know who Haley Bieber was. But she actually is not a Bieber. I thought maybe it was Justin Bieber's mother. That was my first thought. Oh, no, it's Justin Bieber's wife, and she's a Baldwin, Stephen Baldwin's daughter. Now you know all the celebrity gossip. But no, the news that they shared was, Haley Bieber with 49 million Instagram followers is talking about ovarian cancer, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it's good. And because she has 49 million followers, 49 million, that's more followers than I have. I'm in the single digits, maybe the low triple digits. But, that's why NBC covers her, because she's got 49 million followers, and some of them will watch NBC News. In the meantime, they forgot that we have 300 million Americans who are beholden to democracy. That's why the Oath Keepers story is important. 300 million Americans. Oh, Haley Bieber, 49 million. Okay, they weigh it. Okay. I guess they might have covered it in other parts of their broadcast, but like I said, when I saw it, The Oathkeepers. This has got to be a message about the Oathkeepers that the government's serious about protecting our democracy. And if you're serious about taking it down, you will be met and be held accountable for your actions. That's important. That's an important thing. Okay, some other things that I want to touch on. Mauna Loa is is uh, is erupting. It's going at 1 miles per hour. David Ige, the governor of Hawaii, saw him on television today. I mean, when was the last time you saw David Ige, the governor of Hawaii, on television? Now, if you're in Hawaii, of course you say, well, I see him all the time. Yes, of course you see him all the time. But if you are in, Nebraska, I mean, how many people even know who David Ige was or is? And so I was happy to see him, number one. I was happy to hear the Hawaiian accent again. I lived in Hawaii, covered Hawaii, was in Honolulu for about 2 years, and enjoyed it, enjoyed my time. Of course, I was kind of bi-coastal. I would come back and forth from California to Honolulu, and it was a great existence. I don't know how I did it. I don't know how my family survived, but we did. And because of that, I have a little, soft spot in my heart for Honolulu, for Hawaii. Even though most of the time I was in Honolulu, didn't go many times to other islands. I've been to Maui, but this volcano, we talked about it the other day. It's a big deal. It's going at 1 miles per hour. It's approaching the main highway in Hawaii, the Big Island, and they're just saying people should watch out if you're driving, because everyone wants to see the pictures of the lava flow. The big question, though, should people not go to Hawaii for vacation? Because a lot of people like to go to Hawaii during the holidays, specifically Christmas. Should people stay away, was the question asked on CNN. Here's the governor of Hawaii, David Ige.
Certainly, we would encourage everyone who has plans to visit the islands to continue. It is completely safe. The eruption site is high up the mountain, and it's in a relatively isolated location. It is safe to view the volcano, and as you said, it is spectacular from afar. And so certainly we encourage those who have plans to continue to come. We certainly would like to have them visit here.
And that's Governor David Ige. If you have plans to go to Hawaii, now I have canceled tickets from the pandemic that I have to use. I think I'll wait. Actually, if I go, I'd probably go to where would I go? Well, I could go to the Big Island, but I usually like to go to Honolulu. I like Honolulu. Honolulu's the best of all worlds, right? If you want to see the wild, you can get the wild. If you want the urban experience of Honolulu, you can get that too. But I have to use it. But anyway, the message from the governor: if you have any kind of inkling to go and are worried, don't worry. But just don't get too close. Don't get too close to the volcano. But come visit. That's always the case with Hawaii. Come visit. All right. Shall we play our sounder? And now, I do want to talk about this because it's real. It's real. Coming up on Thursday, December 1st, I was in this play called The Conductor. and part of a virtual reading. Well, they're going to do a video of this virtual reading, and they're showing it Thursday, December 1st, at the Black Repertory Theater Group, 3201 Adeline Street in Berkeley. So if 7 p.m., if you're there, come see the video, see my small little part, very small part. But it's funny. I mean, the play, Ishmael Reed's the conductor, inspired by the recent San Francisco School Board's recall of 3 board members. And you know, the school boards everywhere, they're like the political epicenter right now. People are looking at the young people and saying, we got to protect them. And so that brings in all these things about, and I'm talking about the left and the right, right? The right wants to protect their kids from hearing about race or history or hearing about the truth when it comes to race and history. They want to protect their kids from being somehow traumatized by LGBTQ issues. So it's all about trying to prevent their kids from being exposed to life, reality, truth. And the best way to do it in their minds is to go to schools, to the school board, and dictate what can and can't be taught. Now, on the left just wants to make up for all the things in the past. I mean, they're all for teaching people history, but they want to make up for the transgressions of the past that have never been addressed. So if your school, like my elementary school, was named for Andrew Jackson, my God, they, for years, taught me that Andrew Jackson was a hero. When Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory, was maybe a bigger bastard than number 45, who we know how bad 45 was. Andrew Jackson was maybe worse. And I grew up thinking, oh, I go to Andrew Jackson Elementary. And elementary, of course, he's a great guy. He's president. He's on the $20 bill. Well, that needs to be corrected, right? You can do that through history. But there are other things that the left wants to do, like rename, not just rename schools and take down murals and all that kind of stuff. That's important. Some of that. I mean, it's a case by case. We got to see, what did people do? What just how bad were these people that we now name a school after? So I think the real problem with school boards is they have to educate people, and they have to think about, it goes back to the 3 R's. It goes back to reading, writing, arithmetic. It goes back to making sure that people are exposed to all the different techniques that help them learn. So that's kind of the discussion I like to see. But now the school boards have become so political about these other discussions. Anyway, those in San Francisco know what that means. It means you recall 3 board members, which I thought was unfair. I didn't think 3 board members needed to be recalled. I think 3 board members needed to be able to do what they wanted to do and then face the consequences in future elections. Or, I mean, there's a way to do it in government. You don't just go to the recall. Anyway, Ishmael Reed saw the San Francisco School Board's recall and was inspired to write a satirical play, The Conductor, by Ishmael Reed, a play in 2 acts, directed by Carla Blank. You can see it on a special video showing at the Black Repertory Theater, December 1st, 7 p.m. That's at 3201 Adeline Street. Their tickets are $17. if you are somewhere else, or now, here's the thing. If you can be there live, you should be there live. Because on December 1st, Ishmael Reed, Carla Blank, and they'll have members of the cast, like myself, there. And you should definitely join in the Q&A and the discussion, the live Q&A and discussion on Thursday, December 1st. That's this week. That's tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow, 7 p.m., 3201 Adeline Street in Berkeley. Come there. I'll be masked to a degree, but I'll be there. If you can't make it, you can go on Eventbrite and you can access the video of the reading. But unfortunately, the Q&A will be just for the in-theater audience only. So if you're in Hawaii or New York or wherever, I'm sorry, the Q&A won't be there. But you can't see the reading. You can't see the videoed reading. And in fact, if you can't make it on Thursday and you just want to see the reading will be on Friday, December 2nd, 7 p.m. Pacific, Saturday, December 3rd, 7 p.m. Pacific, and then Sunday, December 4th, 3 p.m. Pacific. And tickets are $17. You can, let's see, I'll direct you to, well, it's the Black Repertory Theater Group, but I'll give you their number and you call them and buy tickets from them. 510-652-2120. 510-652-2120. And that's for the conductor, a virtual reading, special live Q&A December 1st at 7 p.m. But you can see it throughout the weekend virtually. The Black Repertory Theater Group is sponsoring it. Once again, their number, 510-652-2120. Okay, I want to finish up talking about this. Nancy Pelosi giving up the leadership of the Democratic Party in Congress. And she gave it up to Hakeem Jeffries from, he represents Brooklyn, but he grew up in Crown Heights, New York. Crown Heights, I believe, is Queens, right? But Hakeem Jeffries is going to be the leader. The whip will be Catherine Clark. And the vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus will be Pete Aguilar. And it's funny, I was in Pete Aguilar's district like a couple days ago. Turns out he was a member of the Redlands City Council. Redlands, which is one of those places that is not quite LA, far enough from LA to not be LA, but close enough to say, I'm from LA. Redlands. He went to University of Redlands. He was mayor. He loves Redlands. And, actually I can see that. It's in San Bernardino County. He's of Mexican descent. And he was first elected in 20, when was he elected? First elected I can't read all this. First elected 2015. And so he's been on the job about 7 years. And now he's risen in leadership. This is great for when it comes to Latinos in Congress. Vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus, the highest ranking Latino in Congress. And this is, 43 years old. He's the future. He's the future when it comes to Latinos in Congress, really. And I was just looking at the congressional the congressional tallies. Some are still not determined. Talking about in California, but and you know how I feel about the Chen Steele election, where I thought Steele lied her way into office. I mean, she is. I mean, the final tally for Michelle Steele in California 44. So I can go up into the California 44. Here it is. Oh, excuse me, California 45. It was 52.4% to Jay Chen's 47.6. About 10,000 votes, 11,000 votes difference. And Michelle Steele lied. She just lied about, she said Jay Chen was a communist sympathizer, said Jay Chen was teaching kids. Once again, there's the education thing. They claimed that Jay Chen, who is an American, Taiwanese American, smart guy, served in the Navy Reserves. Also, he doesn't mention it a lot, but he went to Harvard. But he's not Bill Gates. He wants to serve. And I hope he continues to keep banging on the door, because what Michelle Steele did to him was just dirty pool. Anyway, I'm looking over all the different members of the House going back. For Asian Americans, one of the good things is you don't hear much about her, but in Sacramento, they're sending back Doris Matsui. I mean, this is what happens in Congress. You go into Congress and you just stay there. And whether you like it or not, because you're known, the power of incumbency, you just get elected and you win. And Doris Matsui, 68% of the vote. Her next, the Republican only got 31. She's going back. And I like Doris. But she inherited the job because of her husband, Bob Matsui. And she's managed to keep her congressional infrastructure going, so she just gets elected each and every year. I mean, it happens. I mean, once you know how to do Congress, unless you screw up royally, you just keep getting elected. Power of incumbency. Ami Bera is now getting to that. He's not quite that comfortable, but he's up in north of Sacramento, District 6, Democrat. He won with 55.9% to the Republicans' 44.1. That's enough, 14 points. But, he could be there for life, Ami Bera. And I don't know if he's effective. I don't know what he does. He's South Asian American, so I root for him. But like I said, this is how you get people who are there like forever. John Garamendi, who is a career politician, right? District 8 in California, 78.7%. Garamendi has been everything. He's like I said, career politician. He was insurance commissioner for a while. And you see him sometimes show up in some, Wolf Blitzer has him on CNN sometimes. He won with 75.7%. So I'm just looking at, and then Pelosi. She's just going to be a regular congresswoman. She won District 11, San Francisco, 84%. One of my favorites, District 12, Barbara Lee, Democrat. She won 90.8% to Stephen Slauson, Republican, who won 9.5%. So this is the way it is in Congress, you get this job for life. And there's some people who really don't want the job. They don't do much, but they're just there, like Anna Eshoo. I mean, nice person. But what is she doing really? 57.8% she won. She beat Rishi Kumar, 42.2. This is Democrat versus Democrat. And they can't push Anna Eshoo out. And this is what happened. So that's District 16. Anna Eshoo, Rishi Kumar, Eshoo won. But look at District 17, Ro Khanna. And I mention this because Ro Khanna is Indian American. He challenged Mike Honda, Asian American, a couple of years back. Didn't win. Came back, challenged again. Finally beat Mike Honda. And now Ro Khanna is District 17, 70.9%. He beats a Republican, Ritesh Tandon. Sounds like an Asian, South Asian. Only got 29%. But it's interesting because now Ro Khanna is in that he's growing into that incumbent model, winning 70 to 30%. He'll be there for as long as he wants, unless he screws up, or unless his ambition takes him where? I don't know. Where does he go? Is he a big enough name? Ro Khanna is a progressive. But he became a progressive after he defeated Mike Honda. And I don't know. Some people have longer memories, maybe than they should. Look at other races. Now, Zoe Lofgren is interesting, District 18. She won 65.8 versus Peter Hernandez, who had 34% of the vote. Zoe Lofgren actually is doing stuff. I mean, she's on all these committees. She was on the impeachment committee. She was on the January 6th committee. Her thing was, hey, I was around when Watergate was around. Her longevity has helped her. When I was working with Mineta in Congress, Zoe Lofgren was there. And she's still there. And she's winning 65 to 34. So she's got the power of incumbency. And, this is what's happening with Kevin McCarthy. He won 67 to 32 in his district, District 20. But he's got an interesting challenge. He's going to be if he's going to be the Speaker of the House, he's going to have a thin margin, and people have to like him. And from what I'm seeing, he's not very likable. Anyway. Just a little bit on the new the House Democratic Caucus leader, Hakeem Jeffries. He's the first black lawmaker to lead a congressional conference in the U.S. and the first new leader for House Democrats in 2 decades. That's something. 52 years old, a lawyer from Central Brooklyn, and self-described progressive. He was the first elected in 2012, forging relationships with Democratic establishment figures in Washington while navigating the ascending left in his backyard. This is according to the Washington Post. Succeeds Nancy Pelosi, the first woman to hold that position. Isn't it funny? Unanimous vote, closed-door meeting. But it's funny how we are in this Congress, and there's still room for all these first, right? Nancy Pelosi, first woman to hold that position. We got Hakeem Jeffries, first black lawmaker to lead a congressional conference in the U.S. Always making inroads in terms of the kind of diversity we need for the Congress, for representative government to look like all the rest of us. So Pelosi, 82. When you think of that, you say, well, God, it was time. I mean, Steny Hoyer, House Majority Leader, and James Kleinberg, who's the whip, both in their 80s. This is generational change. It's historic, and it's kind of, it's about time. I mean, look, when you see people in their 80s doing the things that Pelosi and Hoyer and Clyburn are doing, it makes you realize, hey, if you're in your 60s, you're young. But they went beyond. Hakeem Jeffries is what? I said 50, 53, 52. Catherine Clark from Massachusetts, 59. Aguilar, 43. So they've got a troika, a real generational troika, and a mixed group. Although we're the Asians, gotta say I would have to say probably some of the Asians, maybe they didn't want to go for leadership. I mean, that's a decision you make in your congressional career. Do you want to go for leadership, or do you want to just have your pet issues? I remember talking with Congressman Mineta when I was working with him. And the talk was, hey, he made it clear very early on he wasn't going to go for leadership. He was going to go for a committee assignment and become the chair. And he became the chair of the Public Works and Transportation Committee, which, if you know Congress, is, you're the king of the pork barrel. You're also, worked on infrastructure issues and transportation. But that's the power. So there are different ways to get power. For Asian Americans, I'm thinking about Chu. I'm thinking about Ted Lieu. I don't know why they weren't in the discussion, but you've got the three: Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar. That's going to be the congressional leadership for Democrats. And I mention that because, generally speaking, Asian Americans, people of color, are Democrats. And it should be good because these guys will learn on the job, and they'll have to work with Kevin McCarthy, or he'll have to work with them. I think it'll be good. And Pelosi, I'm sorry she's going. She's tough. She was strong. But I guess it was just time, right? I guess it was just time. Jeffries, a graduate. Hakeem Jeffries, State University of New York at Binghamton, Georgetown, and NYU Law School. First elected to the New York State Assembly in 2006. And then he went into Congress, elected in 2012. And we wish him well. Well-spoken guy, Hakeem Jeffries, new Democratic leader in the House. All right, so we're winding down. I just want to look at some other news to make sure that didn't miss anything. World Cup, Argentina and Poland advance. Mexico is eliminated. Tough for Mexico. They scored 2 goals. They needed a third to go in. They didn't. They had an offsides call to negate a goal. It's tough. I told you yesterday what I think about the World Cup. It's tough to love the World Cup. You watch it for the soccer. You denounce it for the politics. And hopefully your team wins. This news story, Christine McVie, Fleetwood Mac. If you're a baby boomer, Fleetwood Mac is your band. Singer-songwriter, dead at 79. This is why you don't wait for, you look at people like Nancy Pelosi, 82 years old, you say, God, she's lived a long time. And then you look, Christine McVie dying at 79. I don't know what exactly she died, let's see. Band confirmed her death in a message post on social media. No further details. Family statement said Miss McVie died in a hospital after a short illness. Short illness? That means she was short? Short illness. described as smooth contralto vocals, in contrast to the rougher sound of co-vocalist Stevie Nicks, centerpiece of such classics as You Make Loving Fun, Everywhere. I always liked Christy McVie. She wasn't just a tambourine player. Wasn't she on keyboards? I think. Anyway, I always liked Christy McVie. And of course, right, Rumors. Right? That's the album. Some other news. Oh, this just broke. Can't believe this just broke. But China's former president Jiang Zemin, who ruled after Tiananmen Square, dies at 96. I mean, we know about Xi. I'm just getting used to. Well, something happened. It just disconnected. I don't know why. Anyway, that's it for me. I was going to say Jiang Zemin. I'm just getting used to saying that President Xi is the president of China. But for me, because Jiang Zemin was in charge when I was detained in China, I'll never forget Jiang Zemin. I just won't. I won't forget him. He died, 96. All right, regular listeners to our show know that I like to end with a little meditation. In the meantime, hey, check us out, YouTube, at Emil Amok1. Check us out on Twitter, at Emil Amok. Check us out on my website, amok.com. Hey, I'm Emil Guillermo. This is Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. Thank you for joining us. We like to end with a little meditation. We'll keep it short. It's just loving kindness. Because when you show love to others, it comes back twofold, threefold, however many folds you want. So, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Back tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific. Till then, Mahal Gita.